Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
Hello and welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything, where we give you the tips, scripts, stories, and steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. I'm so thrilled to be your host, Dr. Robyn Silverman, child and teen development specialist, author and speaker, and most importantly, parent of two great kids who give me the opportunity to love, learn, and grow every single day, whether I want to or not. Believe me, I get it. It's not always easy, but we're in this together, and thankfully we have some really wonderful guests who can help us in all different ways and give us the insight we need. Now, as you know, this podcast is all about connecting through conversation. The importance of communication between ourselves and the children in our lives, it cannot be overstated, the importance of that. Conversations are about listening, learning, asking for what you need and want, understanding others, showing up authentically, and yes, certainly connecting. There's an inherent trust in communication, a trust that is reliant on the assumption that we are communicating openly and honestly with one another. Of course, that can be difficult when we are speaking to our kids because so many factors might get in our way. Embarrassment, worry, confusion about what to say. What if we say the wrong thing? How much should we say? What if they think differently than we do? And how do we communicate openly and honestly when we're afraid we might say something wrong? How do we teach our kids about effective communication? We were not taught this specific thing, right? Many of us, it's not a topic in school. So for this topic, let's turn to Sage Hobbs. Now, Sage Hobbs is a women's empowerment coach, speaker, and author of Naked Communication. She's known for her bold, insightful, and dynamic approach to communication, relationships, and personal growth. Sage works in both individual and group settings to create experiences of courage, self-expression, and freedom. Sage supports her clients to unleash their voice, take action, and transform their status quo when they feel stuck, dissatisfied, or stagnant. Now, prior to creating her current work, Sage received her master's degree in counseling psychology and spent a decade working with teens and families to navigate the wild path of growing up. She's a mom of two, a cancer survivor, a proud teacher's wife, a retired school counselor, a world traveler, a living room dance party aficionado, and a book lover. Oh, I just want to thank you, Sage, for joining us on How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Thanks, Robyn. It's so good to be here. Love it.
I'm so excited to have you. So before we get into the meat of the matter, for those who haven't had the opportunity to read your book and to hear all the great things you have to say about conversation and communication, would you just take a moment to tell us what gets you up in the morning and what got you so interested in talking about open and honest communication in all key relationships?
Awesome. Love it. So what gets me up in the morning, honestly, is usually like the patter of feet and somebody jumping on top of me.
Mm-hmm. That's a good way to wake up.
That is off. Although in the last couple of weeks, I've been getting up before them for like this sacred half an hour, which has been a practice that I bring into my life. Oftentimes more in spring and summer because I just have an easier time integrating that then. Mm-hmm. And how I got to doing all of this and what really lights me up about it is honestly my entire life, the only thing that's interested me for very long is human behavior. Like that's what I find fascinating. Always. Like I can remember being a kid and just watching how my friends would interact, trying to help them figure out how to get along better with their moms, all the way through my teenage years. All I wanted to do was be with people and understand them better and help them when they were suffering. And it was just always the thing that excited me. Yes. And I remember going to college and still it's like trying to figure out what I was going to major in. And it kept coming back to how do people show up in the world? Why do some seem to have an easier time than others? What is that piece about human potential? Why do some seem more resilient than others? How can we foster that? Like, why do some seem to have more agency and create their lives and others seem to struggle? It continues to be still the thing that I just get fired up about. Like, and how can we help support that type of self-expression more actively from our kids all the way up, you know? Because actually we were all like that. We were all way more curious and self-expressed as children. Any of the listeners who have little kids, you know, you never have a 2-year-old who doesn't know what they want.
Right.
Like, they're like, oh no, I want that. I don't want that, you know? And then you ask a 40-year-old woman and they often have forgotten like what it's even like to check in around that. What do I really want here?
Right.
Huh. Right. But their 2-year-old self knew. So
we need to get back to our 2-year-old self.
We need to get back to our 2-year-old
maybe without the tantrums, though.
Right, exactly.
minus the tantrums and the foot stamping. Okay.
Right.
So, you know, your work is all about this naked communication. So tell me what that's about and how parents can use it to support their kids.
Yeah, great. So naked communication, well, I will say that the tagline gives a little more context, which is about courageously creating the relationships you really want. And the reason it's called Naked, it was really my husband's idea. It was born out of a 5,000-mile road trip with my 2 small children, which we did 5 summers in a row.
Wow.
I know.
That's
crazy.
Commitment.
I know. We are not doing it this summer, and I feel really good about that.
Yes.
But really, I was writing this book, and it was all about how do we communicate in clean, clear, compassionate, and courageous ways that feel very true and authentic to who we really are, that have us put connection at the forefront of our conversations as opposed to other things like being right or making somebody wrong or other things that insidiously sneak in. I could not think of a title, and everything I kept coming up with was sort of stuffy. And I have a lot of fire in my language and in my personality. And, you know, it all sounded quite clinical. And my husband's like, that's just not you. And he's the one who said, I think it's about naked communication because it's really about, you know, peeling back the layers of conditioning and messaging and habits, you know, our autopilot kind of inner robot ways of doing things so that we can show up in those clean, clear, compassionate, and courageous ways that are actually much more like that 2-year-old self in some ways, you know, that are going kind of back to being naked. So, and it had my personality in it because I kind of like to disrupt the status quo and naked sort of is like, oh wait, what? You know?
Right. Exactly. What is this?
Right.
When I was initially Googling you, I was like, I wrote naked communication and then I wrote Sage Hobbs because I was like,
good call.
Yeah, good call. Because I was like, oh goodness, what's going to pop up here? So let's just make sure the browser history doesn't start to say, what's going on with this girl?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, you know, there is meant to be a spirit of playfulness to it, because I really feel like things are more likely to get done if they're fun, and that I've often said like fun is an underrated value. And so, you know, and I'm like a super overachieving, you know, hard driving kind of woman, and I really have taught myself to keep being fun and playful. So having some lightness to it, it's just not worth keeping. It doesn't have to be so significant, you know? And so even though it's important, so naked also has that sort of vibe to it. And we'll talk about it more, but how it's relevant to parents, it's like, there's nothing that could be more relevant, honestly. If you ask any parent in my experience, and I'll include myself as a parent, what they want in terms of their relationship with their children, they want to have, you know, a loving, self-expressed, open and honest connection with them. They want their 15-year-old to be able to tell them that they need a ride home. Like they want them to be able to say, I really screwed up. I'm dating somebody who's like mean to me. I don't know what to do. How do I get, and they want I so much, I have my son will be 8 on Saturday and my daughter just turned 4. And I'm just so aware of how much I want to keep the way that they share with me accessible as they get older. And I sometimes feel nervous about it because I spent so many years with middle schoolers and my husband's a high school teacher. And we know about adolescent behavior and development, right? So there's like, I'll be like, oh gosh, are you going to shut down? You know?
Right. I know. I feel like I've even had that conversation with my daughter where she's like, I love you, mommy. I love having you here. I love talking to you, mommy. I just want to, she said to me the other night, we're all curled up in her bed, I wish we could just snuggle up and talk all night. And I still remember saying to her, oh, Tally, please say that to me when you're 15. You know, it's so true. I'm like, could I just bottle that and record that and play it back to you when you're a teenager? Yes.
I think the same thing all the time. And I'll say that to my son, and I who's 8, I'll say exactly similarly, like about hugs. He's very nurturing with me and loving with me. And he's just a real tender heart. Naturally, he's a more sensitive and tender-hearted human being than even I am. I have to learn to, really be with his personality. But he'll snuggle, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're going to be like a man when you're 15. You're so much bigger than me. You can't see me, but I'm short.
Yes. Oh, me too. Me too. My son has told me, he's only 6 now, but he's like, when I grow up, I'm going to call you Little Mama.
I love that. So he's so sweet. He'll be like, I'm totally still going to hug you. I'm like, right on, But I want to foster that. And that's what, naked communication is about. How do you foster that? How do you keep it so that you are teaching them through the ways that you talk to them how to not only be open with you, but how to also be courageous in their own communication and real in their own communication out in the world,
Yeah. So tell us, I mean, obviously as parents, we want to do our best, and we talk a lot over here about we make mistakes, and parenting is the ultimate do-over, and we can mess up and we can pull ourselves together and try again. But tell us, like, what are the common pitfalls that parents might make while they're having these tough conversations with their kids? And then how can we avoid them so that we don't put these things in the way of our communication?
Yeah, it's awesome. So I could talk about this for hours, so you'll just have to interrupt me. And I know you're from Jersey, so that should be good, right?
Yeah, I think I'll be
Jersey.
All right.
Right, okay. So the pitfalls we make with our kids are usually the pitfalls we make with any of our conversations. So if you're listening, you can be aware of this with your relationship with your children, with your partner, with your colleagues, your friends, your mother, your own mother, adult mother. And they're varied, but you'll know them when I say them. So the first one I would say is we don't say what we really mean. Mm-hmm. We skirt around issues a lot. Mm-hmm. And in my book, I give an example from my early school counseling days, actually, where this mom just came into my office and she was so distraught. Like, she was so upset. She was in tears, and she said, oh my gosh, I can't take it anymore. Like, her son was, I think, about 14 or 15. And she's like, every morning it's just a battle. It's just horrible. I'm always yelling at him to pull up his pants and take off his hoodie. And like, he's wearing these shredded up pants and his butt's hanging out. His boxers are showing. And she's so upset. Her upset doesn't really match in some ways the issue. Right. And so I'm like, what are you really upset about? What's really actually concerning you? And she really goes on to share that she's absolutely terrified he's getting into drugs, and that he looks like this skater, sort of anti-establishment persona, and that she had that path, and he doesn't know she did, and she's terrified, right? So instead, she's battling him about his pants, and all it's doing is the entirely opposite effect, which is separating them, when she's trying desperately to bring, like, what she wants is to talk to him and bring them together. But her behavior, her language, the way that she's showing up in the conversation is like fully driving him away. I mean, you can imagine, right? Like, his hood is pulled over further, and he wants to get out of the car and away from her as fast as possible. And so I would say, like, that's number one, like, get clear. What is it that you're really needing to say to your child? Are you really angry about the Legos on the floor? Or are you really angry about the music too loud? Or is it like something more about, respecting what you worked hard to buy for them, or honoring the community space in the house so that everybody can think while the music is on, Right. What is the thing that's behind the thing? And we don't do that we don't do that in many of our relationships. We hint and we hope and we wish and we imply. Like, think about that with marriages. You know, we're like, oh, I hope that they remember our anniversary.
Right.
That they do what my girlfriend's husband did or whatever, you know, and they drop little hints. And then when we don't get what we want, we're resentful. Right. So that's the first thing, is just, let's get clear on what you're really trying to say.
Right. So we need to say what we mean and mean what we say and just lay it out.
Yeah, and you can do that compassionately and you know, as clearly as possible. And when I say clean, what I mean by that is to not bring in old crap.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, people fight dirty, and it's like, we're not taught any of this stuff.
Right.
So if you saw, you know, in various examples on television or in your own family of origin, that's how fights went down. You know, it's like you waited and waited, and then you throw every piece of evidence against a person. Clean is about, like, don't yell at your child for 5 different incidents at once. Like, in this moment, what's frustrating you is that they haven't picked something up or they're not on time, you know? Right. Talk about that.
Mm-hmm. Right.
That's that's being clean.
So strip it back.
Strip it back. Exactly. Another thing is to know your own triggers. This is so big. I feel like in everything communication, you have to start with yourself. You need to be responsible for how you show up in the world. And, for example, I am so triggered by my perception of entitlement.
Oh my gosh, you and I are like twins.
Oh, I can't.
Drives me absolutely crazy.
It drives me insane. And so with my own kids, that comes out sideways. Like, I can get really loud. Yes. And I'm not in my best communicating self if my children complain about dinner.
I'm not wearing my conversation shoes.
I am not wearing my conversation shoes. Exactly. Like, my expertise goes out the window if I have an eye roll and a complaint about a fresh, hot cooked meal on the table.
I feel it. I feel it. Yes, I get it.
So, but I have done my own work, right? And I know what the things are that trigger me. So I get better. I'm not perfect. My children will tell you that's still a source of challenge for me. But what I can do now, knowing what I know about myself, is I can have much more effective conversations with my son where, for example, I teach him how to say something about dinner. Like, oh, stir fry really isn't my favorite. Thanks for making it. But are there pieces of it that I can eat and not the rest? Or is there can I just have the rice and the chicken, you know? And I can totally handle that. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that works for me.
Sure.
You know?
I like that you're giving them tools to be able to converse in that compassionate way, because when we're hearing it, if they don't do that, then that entitlement feeling comes out, and what we're hearing is, what you are doing for us right now isn't good enough.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I deserve something else. And you say, wait a second, that really feels bad. Of course, that's what we're wearing our conversation shoes. Yeah. What we do say is, yeah, okay.
Right. But what I've also said to him, in the spirit of being naked and clean and clear, is I say very clearly, look, we are really fortunate that we have access to like amazing food, you know, and we'll talk about that. We have, you know, we do highs and lows. We talk about gratitude. Yes. Like, and I'll just say, you don't have to like everything we make. I understand that I ask you to eat, you know, a wide range of adult foods in some ways, but we're really lucky. Like, we get choices. And sometimes I bring in, when I lived in Kenya, and what we ate every single day in Kenya. And my son is old enough now, like he's getting a little bit more of a worldview, you know, but we have to know our own stuff, our triggers, in order to then be able to consciously and aware, like in an aware way, with awareness would be a better way to say that, teach them. Why does that, they're not responsible for taking care of me, but I can explain to them, this is why I get upset when you say what you say in that way. I will work on that part for me because I know that you're a child, and here's how you could say it differently, you know?
Okay, so we have, you want to make sure you're saying what you mean, and you want to make sure that you know your own triggers, and then be able to teach your kids how to speak in a compassionate way when they become aware of people's triggers around them.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And you're also teaching them how to identify triggers.
Yes, which is important. Important.
Huge.
If they know that something specific triggers a teacher in their class, they certainly are going to be, having an advantage to make sure they don't go down that path. As long as it's not, making them feel squashed down in terms of their creativity, of course. But if standing up and being the class clown or whatever is, driving their teacher crazy, they know that there's a time and a place for that, so they can recognize that trigger. Okay.
And they can own their own triggers. So if I'm honest about having triggers, that gives him permission to have triggers too. Okay, he gets really triggered when I raise my voice, my child. Mm-hmm. My daughter doesn't. She likes to yell and scream, like that's her deal. But he is like literally sensitive to this volume. So when we identify our own stuff, we give permission for them to identify theirs.
I love it. I think that's great. Our children are not perfect, and they don't need to be perfect. It's about being aware of who they are and what makes them tick and what makes them feel frustrated, and then providing them with some coping skills to deal with them in productive ways.
100%. Yeah. So then the last one is, like I said, I could probably give you more, but this is the one I feel like is super essential and maybe one of the harder ones, which is we don't listen to their point of view. Mm-hmm. We think we do, but we get caught up in our own worries or fears or desires to protect them, or this idea we have about being the authority, and we forget that they are little humans, or bigger humans if you have a teenager. This for sure applies to teens and preteens. And they just want to be seen and heard and understood just like we do. Mm-hmm. I have a really core belief that human beings are dying for connection, that we're animals who thrive in community, and we want to feel like people see us and hear us and understand us. That is actually, if you read about regrets of the dying, people are, when they're at their final hours, like that's what they're looking for. Was I loving deeply, and did I deeply love? That's actually that's the most important thing for most people in the end, right?
Well, let me underscore that for a moment, because I think it really is important, that connection piece, and making sure that our kids feel seen, heard, and understood. But for those people who are listening who may have had a bad morning, or yelled at their kid last night, or had a frustrating afternoon or evening, take a breath for a second. It's going to be okay here. There is always time to get back to connection. And even if it takes some time, and you feel like maybe at this moment a little bit disconnected from your kid, and this is normal, and for everybody to have times when they feel super connected and sometimes feel disconnected, that you can get back to feeling connected through some of these conversations, through listening, and I'm sure through some of the things that you'll be giving us as tips for clean and clear and beautiful communication that you so easily lay out in your book.
Yes, I love that you underscore that. 100% agree with you that this is a wild ride.
Yes, it is.
It is a wild ride. To grow up and to raise human beings is like, I can't imagine anything more. And I don't like to say it's hard, because I really love being a parent,
yes.
But it pushes every one of my buttons, yes. And it stretches me to my max on any given day. So these are just more resources, and that we can employ to do. I have a firm belief that we do the best we can with the skills we have.
Yes.
And I've said that to many children and adults about the people in their lives that have, hurt them. Like, well, they were doing the best they could with the skills they have. But good news here with your podcast,
thank you,
and in these conversations, is you can learn new skills.
Yes, I mean, and the listeners that are here right now, and they're the ones that are showing up right now, and I commend it, because I learn constantly on this podcast. I am no different from anybody else here, and believe me, all of the experts that have been interviewed who are amazing people and known in their fields have told me that they are listening to the other podcasts on the list now and learning something. So we all have something to learn. And I wanted to ask you, because you brought this idea up of when, and we're talking about it right now, like when we do feel a little bit disconnected, when things, might not feel so right, sometimes, we do get more triggered, right? I mean, we do get more upset. We're angry. We want to be connected, but we're not. How can we diffuse our kid or their teen when they are really upset and angry without further damaging a relationship or damaging it in the first place? Yeah,
it's huge. Okay, great. Well, this goes sort of back into where we left off. It's perfect, which is it's really about, there's a kind of a magic thing to this. It's about really getting their point of view. Mm-hmm. It's that old fashioned expression in a sense of like, you're not in their shoes, right? Well, what if you were, right? Mm-hmm. And there's something so powerful about acknowledging that you understand where they're coming from. So where we get tripped up, however, is that we think that if we acknowledge where they're coming from, we are excusing their behavior and making it seem like they were right and we are wrong. Mm. So if your teenager was drunk driving, I'm going to use a more significant example, right? Obviously your first job is to keep them safe, right? And you're going to feel angry and scared and hurt and all of those things. But if you come tearing into them in that moment, there may be more damage done to their ability to talk to you about anything scary like that in the future. Mm-hmm. But if you come at it like, I really get that and let's assume that the child is kind of freaked out. They know that they did something stupid, which oftentimes they do. Mm-hmm. They've dug themselves into some hole, and you can say like, I really get that was scary for you, and that you made a mistake, and that your choice was, you felt pressured and confused about how to make the right choices. And that is just getting their point of view. That's not saying it's okay. Mm-hmm. That's just literally getting their point of view. And when somebody isn't in battle with you, it diffuses everything. It's like as soon as you take the sting out for them, they can't fight back in the same way. So when I was a school counselor, this was sort of my ninja power with really angry parents. And my principal used to just like really appreciate that about me and call me into these kinds of meetings a lot. Because, as a parent, you come into the school and you feel like your child's been wronged, you're angry. You're mama bear or papa bear, and you're ready to protect, and, you're out to prove your point. And if you could, I can think of this one mom in particular, if you can just for a moment pause and get the experience that they're having, it's just their experience. They are having an experience. If I can get their experience, immediately the volatility and the anger and the rage can disseminate. And your kids are the same. So if you're feeling disconnected, it's probably because they don't think you understand them.
Right. I'm even thinking about, when children we're talking a lot about failures and mistakes lately. And, I just think of, your child fails a test. And, you automatically may feel very upset, especially if you know that they didn't prepare well, or if you had been hounding them, let's say, to prepare and they weren't studying, or that you felt like they were goofing off. Of course, and I told you so is on the tip of your tongue in so many ways, right?
Yeah.
And nobody likes to hear that. We all know that. Nobody wants that. But it can understand why it would be on the tip of our tongues, because this is what we've seen. We knew it was going to happen, and then the crash happened. The car crash happened, the failure happened, the same thing. And I can see how you can use your scripting in so many different ways to be able to sit down with your child and get them and look at them and say, I understand you felt, you felt embarrassed coming to me with this test. Like, I understand that. I get that you feel like you're stupid and can't do anything right. All those words that are coming out of your head, I get that, because this failure on this test is telling you that. And then you can then say what you truly mean, where you can say, I believe in you, though. I see you and I know that you can do this, and let's work together on finding ways to deal with this so that you're better prepared next time. Let me hear some of your ideas, because you're opening things up. You see them, and then you're opening things up so that there's more room for discussion.
That's exactly literally what I would have said. So you have to get their point of view first and use that script like you just mentioned, which is, I really get your experience, or I really get where you're coming from, or I really understand that, right? And try and use their own words if they've given you any. Right. And then the second piece, what you just mentioned, is about affirming love. It's just affirming love. Like, there's a Swedish children's book that I used to read to both of my kids a ton. And it was, I think it's called I Love You No Matter What. And it was super simple, but it was basically like, when you're angry, I love you. When you're mad, I love you. When you're sad, when you're dirty, when you're clean, I love you. I love you. And that piece about that you love them no matter what is really essential, because it's like, you're going to mess up. Yes. We're humans. I mess up all the time.
So much.
They hear me apologize often.
All the time. We've got to apologize to our kids. Yeah. We got to tell them we did things wrong. We've got to try harder. We get it. Yeah, we're not exempt.
Right, exactly. And then the last piece you said, which is what I just want to reiterate, is about leaving the door open. Okay. So if you've been feeling disconnected from your kid, you want to get where they're coming from. You want to express your love, and you want to leave a door open. And it can literally be, I am here. I know you might not think I understand, but I am willing to listen to you anytime that you want me to.
That listening piece is so important. When we think about having a conversation with kids, or having a tough conversations with kids, we often think about how we can prepare for the words, right? We think about, what am I going to say? But so many times, conversations with kids is about the listening piece. What is your child saying that you may reflect back, that you may comment on, that you may need to give advice on? But so much of it is listening, and listening to the different levels, whether it's the words or the feeling, the energy, the mood, or your own intuition while you're listening, so that the conversation is really revealing. And as I said, I often say, in a conversation, there's more than one person talking. If you're the only one talking, it means it's a soliloquy, not a conversation.
100%. Yeah, it's a diatribe. I want to say one more thing about the listening, because we've talked about it, and I feel like if your listeners take just this one piece away, it would be worth it, which is, we are super attached to being right as human beings. It's like an addiction. It feels so good, and we really believe it's true. Yes. Like, we believe we are right and they are wrong. I mean, it's like in our bones, And yes. I have spent my lifetime in my career really looking at multiple points of view. It's like my go-to skill set to work on transforming relationships with my own life and with my clients, etc. Because almost everything is actually just an interpretation. And then there's the things that happened. They're the facts, right? Like, your kid gets in a car accident. That happened. My parents got divorced when I was 13. That happened, But everything else is mostly just the meaning or the interpretations we put on top of that. And we don't see that. So therefore, we think that our reality is real and that that we're right. But if you talk to two siblings, they're going to remember, adult siblings, they will remember their childhoods differently. If you ask me and my brother and sister, we have different memories of how the divorce went down. Same family system, right. Same parents.
Same days, dealing with the same days.
Same conversation in the living room, But we really love to be right. And I write about in my book about, would you rather be right or would you rather be happy? Because we get so overly attached to being right that we will ruin our relationships to prove a point.
Right, for like the proverbial bingo, like to be able to be like,
gotcha, right, told you so, exactly,
yeah.
told you so, right? So with our kids, I just want to challenge us to consider that from their point of view, they were right too. Mm-hmm. Like when they were sitting at that party or after school with their friends and there was hard decisions to be made, like they were doing the best they could with the skill they had, and they felt like what they were doing was, what needed to be done, let's say. And we might think it's crazy, but we're not 13 anymore.
Right.
So if we can just get that most of the time, either everybody's right or no one is, depending on how you want to look at it. Mm-hmm. And we can let that go a little bit. But particularly in our relationships as parents, we get super attached to this because we're older. We've been through life experiences. We ultimately think we do know better. Sometimes we actually do. We know how to make safer decisions. Our brains are more fully developed, and but it doesn't help our relationship with them at all to go into the conversation with the intention of proving how right we are.
So important. So important what you're saying. And I think that's something for every relationship that we're in, of course, not just with our children, but with other adults as well, as you were saying. There's something that is in your work that I wanted to ask about. And so in our sort of final minutes before we close out, I would love to find out from you a little bit more about the power of asking. Sometimes kids really shy away from asking for what they want. They're afraid of how people will see them, how they look at them, especially if they have to ask for help. Sometimes that can be really crippling for some kids and some adults. So can you tell us, what are the steps to asking for what you want?
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a huge one for all of us to get better at, and kids and women seem to struggle with it the most, I have to say, in my work. And it's so important because, that's how you advocate for yourself. That's how you find success in life, in career, and in relationships, is to make requests, right? And it's how you have a sense of your own personal power. So the first thing is really to be clear on what you actually want. This goes back to the beginning around hinting and hoping and stuff and such like that, where you're an expert on yourself. Mm-hmm. And even children, they know how they feel inside of their bodies. They know what feels right or what doesn't feel right to them. And like we said, little 2-year-olds are clear. Mm-hmm. So you want to know what you want. You want them to have permission to want what they want too. You don't have to agree with it, but we don't want to squelch their desires early on. We all know what that does, right? That makes kids who don't follow their dreams. So you want to know what you want. That's the first piece. And then I give this little formula for how you make a clear request. Again, it's not the hinting and hoping. You make a clear request, but you want to sandwich that request, that clear request, in between an appreciation and an acknowledgement. And you have to break this down into kid language, but one of the ways that they'll learn this is by watching you do it. So if you get better at this, they too will get better at this.
Okay. So give us an example of how you would sandwich a request. Let's say that the child would like ice cream. And we want to make sure that they say it in a way that that doesn't make us feel really frustrated. So we're giving them the tools, and this is just so that we can talk to them about it, because it's such a typical request. So
yeah, I love it.
How can we? Okay, let's say you want ice cream. Instead of saying, I want ice cream, let's have the Sage Hobbs way of asking for what you want.
Great. So you would say, the kid would think to themselves, I really want ice cream, right? I'm clear about that. It's Tuesday afternoon and I just really want ice cream. Mm-hmm. And then they would say, Mom or Dad, I really appreciate how you planned my party for this weekend, or how you took care of packing my lunch last night, and all these things that you do for us around here. I really appreciate that my clothes are clean. I just really appreciate that you help out around here a lot so that I can have a good, easy day at school. And what I'm really wanting this afternoon, just for no reason, but I really want it, is to have some ice cream. I really want to go to the ice cream, to Sweet Cow. That's our favorite ice cream place, and get a scoop. And then the acknowledgement piece is, I get that wasn't in the plan, and that may throw off our afternoon schedule, and then it means having sugar before dinner. But I'd still really love to know, could we get some ice cream?
You know what I say to my kids, and if they ask that way, I mean, it's much harder to say no. But this is what I say to them: when you ask nicely for something and you use that kind of language, you are showing appreciation and kindness, big on kindness and appreciation and gratitude, then you are so much more likely to get a yes. Sometimes the answer will still be no. But if you ask rudely, the answer will always be no. So you're increasing your chances of yes many-fold by simply asking in a kind way. And that should be something that they use for ice cream, but it is something when they will use for a raise, when they're older, if they have a job. It's for asking for help from a professor when, studying for a test or not understanding something, and asking a request from maybe a spouse if they're married when they're older, and saying, I really appreciate what you do around the house and helping me out with this and that. I really would just ask that you could not put these particular shirts in the wash. Not that I would know anything about that, or the dryer. But I understand that it might cause a little bit more work for you when you're putting it in this dryer.
That's a great example, right?
Not that I would know anything about shrinking a shirt ever. Right. No, my husband now does the laundry, thankfully, because he's infinitely better about it. But that is a true story. That actually happened, and he was very sweet about it. So I just
it's with higher stake requests. Works much higher stakes requests. But I want to so that's perfect. You just nailed the formula. It's appreciate, request, acknowledge. So it's like a sandwich.
Yes.
The magic is when the appreciation is as specific as possible to that individual, so that they really get it's about them. Right. It's not generic.
Right. Like I really get that you're so nice. Is not
right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
And the acknowledgement is this has been huge for many of the adults I've talked to about this, is that you're acknowledging that your request does have an impact on them. So when I wanted to go back to work part-time after having children, I acknowledged that was going to impact the school. And I said that to my boss. I get that this is going to be, you won't have as much counseling support if I'm not here. So how can I make it easier on you when I am? But I acknowledged the impact my request had. And then just one last point is just about that kindness piece. I'm huge on kindness, and I'm careful about it because I really don't want us to teach our girls in particular to just be nice.
No.
So,
that's
so it's
garbage.
Like a delicate dance, right?
Yes.
Like, you don't have to kiss butt to get a raise, because you deserve a raise if you're really an awesome employee.
Yes.
And so you want to couch it in kindness, but you also want to be clear and strong
and assertive and effective. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I think that's important to put some high beams on, especially for our girls who are taught so often that they need to be nice. We don't use that word here in the Silverman household. Nice seems like a very bleh word, but I mean, kind-hearted I think is important, and you can still be kind-hearted and be assertive and emphatic about what you need and want.
Totally.
So thank you for underscoring that. That is important. So could you tell us if there was one tip, and you already kind of did this, but let's say it again. If there was one tip that you would want the listeners to take away about having really good communication with our kids, or teaching our kids about effective communication, what would it be?
The number one tip I would say is what I call getting it. And that is that art we talked about of really just putting yourself in their shoes, in their point of view, and getting their experience and letting them know you get them. Yes. I can't underscore that enough. It just makes them feel loved by you. It makes them feel seen. It makes a window open to them sharing more with you, because they'll believe that you might actually understand. And it's the ultimate diffuser of upset.
So just beautiful.
So that's what I would say. I think that's the number one tip.
It's a beautiful thing. And it's something that you can do right away. Like, I'm just thinking of my kids walking through the door today and just taking in their energy. Are they feeling sad, happy? Are they excited? Are they feeling down? Did something happen to them today? And just being able to connect with them and be able to say, I get it. I understand. I hear you.
Yes.
I hear you. I see I see what you're saying here. So that you just take that moment before you, and maybe instead of launching into, here's what I did, here's how to solve that problem, because often they don't need that. Often they just want to be seen and heard, right?
And if we jump the gun, they don't tell us next time how they're actually doing.
Or they're not listening anyway, right? Because they can't
right.
yet. Yeah.
Or they'll just say, like, if my son comes home and he has a field trip today, he was so excited about it, and I say, hey, buddy, how was the field trip? If he says to me, oh, it wasn't that great, it was kind of disappointing, and so was annoying, my instinct is to want him to see the positive side of things. Like, that's my instinct, right? To be like, well, but it didn't rain, and you were so excited.
Right.
If I do that, the next time, you know what his answer is to me? It was fine.
It's fine, right? Because you're not really listening to me anyway. You're coming in with your own agenda.
Exactly.
Okay.
If I say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, it wasn't what you hoped it would be," then it's like I've left the door open.
So for the resource of the week, tell everybody where they can get more information about you or your work or perhaps even your book.
Great, yeah. So the book is on Amazon, easy peasy. And Naked Communication, Sage Hobbs. And then my website has some free resources, including the Ask Formula cheat sheet, which I think is super clear, right? It really lays it out, yes. The steps in more detail than what we got to speak about here. And not just the steps, but the reason why it's so darn important. Why really does it matter? If you don't ask over time, you lose your voice, you lose your power. So there's a piece about that in there as well. And that's at sagehobbs.com. And I believe you'll have that somewhere.
Absolutely.
But you can find out all about what this whole naked communication thing is all about in greater detail there, and grab your free resource. The Ask Formula is really
it's terrific. I have it myself, and I think it is really helpful and something that we can teach our kids. We can teach them the sandwich, and that will help often, and they can refer back to it as they grow up. Sage Hobbs, I have to just thank you so much for joining us today and talking to us about communication. I really think your tips are important. They themselves are clear and compassionate, just like the message that you're trying to send. And I think there's something that everybody can use who is listening today and for days to come. So thank you so very much.
Thank you, Robyn. Great to be here.
So I've got my takeaways, and sweet friends, I know you have yours. Let's discuss them. Come up on Facebook. Let's go to facebook.com/Dr. Robyn Silverman, or let's chat about it on drrobynsilverman.com or twitter.com/Dr. Robyn. And if you love this podcast like I did, would you kindly go up to iTunes, rate, review it, share it, let everybody know about it so that they can hear these outstanding solutions that Sage Hobbs has provided and all of our other fantastic experts. More people can hear about them and use them in their own homes. It's such a gift. Thank you so very much about sharing it and rating, reviewing it from the beginning of the launch. It's been so terrific, and I've been so grateful. We also have a closed group that you can get to from facebook.com/Dr. Robyn Silverman, where we're going to be talking even more about the podcast, and I hope you'll request to be in that. We love a community of people who are really willing to share. We're making it closed because we want people to feel comfortable in sharing in that community. Of course, any of you can be in it. We love to have you. That's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com. I look forward to weathering the storms and enjoying the sunny side of life together. And please remember, even when it seems like nothing is going right, we all have those days. Perhaps today is that day. You've got this. You're here. You're getting the information you need. And on the days we fall short, never forget there's always tomorrow. Parenting is the ultimate do-over. I get it too. And when there are moments when we doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet sanity, please believe that you are 10 times the parent you think you are. You really are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.